Hello, it's me again. Today I'm here to talk to you all about the female reproductive system, everything you've ever wanted to know. So just like with the male reproductive system, I want you to take the notes, just write down the organ and the definition of the organ as I go through these. All right, if I go too fast, just pause and continue on, just like last time. Here we go. I hope you're ready. Put on your seatbelts. So the first organ we are going to learn about is called the uterus. Sometimes it's also referred to as the womb. This is a very muscular organ that holds the fetus, which is the unborn baby, of course, during pregnancy. The uterus, as you can see here in this diagram, is shaped like an upside down pear. It is about the size of a woman's fist, and it has some of the strongest muscles in the female body to help push out the baby during labor, during birth. All right, next we have the ovum or ova. I usually just call them eggs. You can see there, ovum is singular, ova is plural. Now, unlike the male sex cell, which we know is called the sperm, the baby girls are born with all of their eggs or ovum in their ovaries. We females were born with about 4 to 500,000 in each ovary, so we have lots of eggs. They just lie dormant in the ovaries until the girl hits puberty, which we know is around 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It's a pretty wide range. All right, so I'll talk more about those later. And one more thing about the ovum is that they're really, really big compared to the sperm. You would be able to see an ovum laying on a table without a microscope. I know that's weird to think about, but that's how big they are compared to the 1/600th of an inch that sperm are. Next, we have the fallopian tubes. I refer to the fallopian tubes, I like to call them the magical tubes, because this is the only place in the reproductive system that and sperm can unite with the egg and fertilize it. So that's where conception takes place. These are what their job is. They connect the uterus, as you see here, to the ovaries. And once puberty hits for girls, an egg is released every single month, and these little fimbria, these little finger-like projections, grab onto that egg, and now it travels through the fallopian tubes. It takes about 3 to 5 days for that egg to travel through these tubes. These tubes are about a fourth or 4 inches long and about the size of a piece of cooked spaghetti. So if during sexual intercourse a sperm swims up the vagina through the uterus into the fallopian tube and there is an egg, ovum happen to be waiting there, voila, fertilization might take place, and then which will hopefully form into a baby. All right, now like I talked about last slide, the fimbria, everybody say fimbria. These are the little finger-like projections at the end of each of the fallopian tubes, and their job is to sweep or grab that egg that comes out of the ovary once a month, so it can be set to travel down these fallopian tubes, the fimbria. Now we have the cervix. So the cervix is the lower part of the uterus, right here where the uterus and the vagina meet. It's a very small opening. It's about the size of an opening of a straw, so it's very tiny. So the only thing that can get through the cervix is sperm, and then the only thing that can come out of the cervix from the uterus is, of course, a baby during birth and the blood from the female's menstrual period, which I'll talk about in a second. The cervix. All right, now we have a process called ovulation. This is once a female hits puberty, every single month, one egg is chosen as the egg of the month, sort of like the employee of the month at McDonald's. It pops out of the ovary during ovulation. It's about halfway through the woman's cycle, 28-day cycle, and it comes out of the ovary, goes through the fallopian tubes, and this is where, like I said, where the sperm can unite with that egg, which can lead to fertilization, ovulation, once a month. Sometimes you may be wondering how twins work. Sometimes two eggs are released, and if both of those eggs are fertilized, that we have fraternal twins. Sometimes, in more rare cases, an egg releases, it's fertilized, and then when it gets into the woman's uterus, for some reason it splits in two, and that is when we have the identical twins. So the endometrium, everybody say that, endometrium. So during the 28-day cycle, this is the lining of the uterus. So I wish I had a red pen here, I could draw this, but it's just a layer of blood and tissue that builds up on the inner lining of the uterus. And so if that egg gets fertilized and it travels into the uterus, the endometrium kind of acts as a little cushiony pillow. So the fertilized egg can split into 2 cells, 4 cells, 8 cells, 16, and so on and so forth, voila, until we have an embryo created. Endometrium. The endometrium is also the blood of when a female has her menstrual period. That's where the blood comes from. It's shed and it leaves the body, which I'll talk more about here in a minute. Right now. So menstruation, this is better known as the period. This is the monthly breakdown of that endometrium, or the lining of the uterus. So if that female's egg did not get fertilized during that month, this endometrium is no longer needed, so it's shed through the body, and that's the blood that makes up the period. And then the next month it builds up again, and so on and so forth. The cycle continues. And this is what we call the menstrual cycle. So the menstrual cycle is a cycle of ovulation, that's when the egg pops out of the ovary, and menstruation, that's the period, the blood coming out of the body, and it lasts about 28 days. So you can see here, some females like to keep track of their days, and so if you're interested in this, day 1 is always the first day of your period. Periods typically last between 5 to 7 days. During puberty years, during adolescent years, teenage years, because of the fluctuation of the hormones that your body is creating, most girls will not have a regular 28-day cycle. In fact, it's very rare that they will. And so if that applies to you, just so you know, that's normal. And as you get older, it will even out and be more 28 days. But anyway, so the period lasts here about 5 days. Period stops. That endometrium kind of starts building and thickening, and then this is the ovulation. So this is the time when the egg comes out of the ovary and is traveling through the fallopian tubes. This is the time where that egg can be fertilized through by a sperm during sexual intercourse. All right, if that does happen, well, of course, this whole process stops for 9 months while the baby is being developed in the woman's uterus. If that egg did not get fertilized, well, here we go. The cycle continues. Now, this menstrual cycle continues throughout a woman's life for about, well, until she hits menopause, which can typically come around 55 to 60. It's a little different in each woman. Okay, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to play this video and just watch this.
The great enemy of writing isn't your own lack of talent, it's being interrupted.
This might seem hard to believe, but right now, 300 million women across the planet are experiencing the same thing, a period. The monthly menstrual cycle that leads to the period is a reality most women on Earth will go through in their lives. But why is this cycle so universal? And what makes it a cycle in the first place? Periods last anywhere between 2 and 7 days, arising once within a 28-day rotation. That whole system occurs on repeat, happening approximately 450 times during a woman's life. Behind the scenes are a series of hormonal controls that fine-tune the body's internal workings to make menstruation start or stop during those 28 days. This inner machinery includes 2 ovaries stocked with thousands of tiny sacs called follicles that each contain 1 oocyte, an unfertilized egg cell. At puberty, ovaries hold over 400,000 egg cells, but release only 1 each month, which results in pregnancy or a period. Here's how the cycle unfolds. Each month, beginning around puberty, the hormone-producing pituitary gland in the brain starts releasing 2 substances into the blood: follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. When they reach the ovaries, they encourage the internal egg cells to grow and mature. The follicles respond by pumping out estrogen. The egg cells grow and estrogen levels peak, inhibiting the production of FSH and telling the pituitary to pump out more LH. That causes only the most mature egg cell from one of the ovaries to burst out of the follicle and through the ovary wall. This is called ovulation, and it usually happens 10 to 16 days before the start of a period. The tiny oocyte moves along the fallopian tube. A pregnancy can only occur if the egg is fertilized by a sperm cell within the next 24 hours. Otherwise, the egg's escapade ends, and the window for pregnancy closes for that month. Meanwhile, the now empty follicle begins to release progesterone, another hormone that tells the womb's lining to plump up with blood and nutrients in preparation for a fertilized egg that may embed there and grow. If it doesn't embed, a few days later the body's progesterone and estrogen levels plummet, meaning the womb stops padding out and starts to degenerate, eventually falling away. Blood and tissue leave the body, forming the period. The womb can take up to a week to clear out its unused contents, after which the cycle begins anew. Soon afterwards, the ovaries begin to secrete estrogen again, and the womb lining thickens, getting ready to accommodate a fertilized egg or be shed. Hormones continually control these activities by circulating in ideal amounts, delivered at just the right time. The cycle keeps on turning, transforming each day and each week into a milestone along its course towards pregnancy or a period. Although this cycle appears to move by clockwork, there's room for variation. Women and their bodies are unique after all. Menstrual cycles occur at different times in the month, ovulation comes at various points in the cycle, and some periods last longer than others. Menstruation even begins and ends at different times in life for different women, too. In other words, variations between periods are normal. Appreciating these differences and learning about this monthly process can empower women, giving them the tools to understand and take charge of their own bodies. That way, they're able to factor this small cycle into a much larger cycle of life.
All right, so that's the menstrual cycle. I like that video. It's really puts it into simple terms, even though it's a very complicated process, I guess. All right, let's get out of here and go back to the ovaries. So the ovaries, the females have 2 ovaries. They're located on the sides of a woman's